Welcome back to Warehouse and Operations as a Career. I'm Marty, and WAOC is back on the road this week. I'm in San Antonio, Texas at the International Foodservice Distributors Association Conference. I'm actually here to introduce the Distribution Training Center. It's always great to see all the vendors and old colleagues within the industry. You know, there's some exciting news and innovations in our worlds of distribution coming. I'll be sharing bits and pieces of what I learned and saw this week in some future episodes too. There's just so much to absorb. If you remember, we visited with Joe back in April at the Taste of Oak Cliff event and learned a little about the Distribution Training Center. And as one of the instructors involved with it, I was honored to be a part of its introduction to the industry this week. I'll be sure to try and grab Joe in the next week or two and put an episode together from the DTC. It'll be a lot of fun. Maybe we can even interview a few students over there. Boy, I tell you, attending a large conference is really a lot of work, even for the attendees. I remember my first conference as a young supervisor. Talk about being stressed out. I guess it's a lot like how we can feel with a new job or our first day on the job. I mean, we're in a new environment, seeing all kinds of knowledgeable people and a host of new products, and being introduced to new efficiencies as well as not exactly tried and true thoughts. As a young member of management, it's really an honor, or I always chose to believe that it worked that way, to be chosen to attend a corporate event or industry conferences each year. I always looked at the cost of the event, the travel, hotel stays, and honestly, those attendee registrations don't come cheap either. And I kind of committed myself to see all that I could see and learn all I could from every booth and really everyone I met. As many of you know, I try and keep a daily journal, really for my own benefits, but I'd write down everything that I saw at the conferences. Most importantly for myself, my own self-education, but the greater benefit was probably that it gave me the opportunity to share what I learned with my bosses. Whenever you have the opportunity to travel to such and learn or promote your company, I strongly urge you to seize that moment. There's no better way to get noticed by your executive management team than assuring them that monies have been spent wisely and that they will see a return on their investment with you and with sending you to future conferences. Being a young supervisor or new to management is probably the toughest segment of your whole career. We've spoken before how one of our first obstacles is breaking the expectations and relationships with our crews or cliques, whatever you call them, our fellow employees, I guess. We used to be part of the group, then overnight things changed. We now have responsibilities, regulatory, governmental. We have to make sure all the rules, processes, and procedures are not just kind of being followed, but really performed to the letter of the law or our company's expectations. A real quick story, I knew a forklift driver. He was one of 6 drivers or operators on his shift. For literally years, they had no direct supervisor overseeing them. They were a very tenured group, knew what they were doing, and to be honest, very good at their jobs, a very productive team. Anyway, the department was growing, and my friend was promoted to the position of put-away supervisor. Since the department would be experiencing this growth, actually doubling within like 8 months, it was on everyone's radar now. The warehouse director, who used to only check in with the group about once a week, was now involved daily. His expense budgets were increasing, and of course his responsibility towards payroll and productivity would be scrutinized as well. Oh, and then the safety manager, someone they rarely heard from before, was now, and probably rightly so, was a little more involved with the group. With all the new operators being added to the shift and the crew growing, he needed to be much more involved. Anyway, the old group of 6 for years had been doing both of their pre-trips and post-trip paperwork at the end of their shift, just before punching out for the day. The company's policy had always been that you'd perform your pre-trip report upon arrival, worked your shift, and completed the day doing your post-shift equipment report on your way out the door. My friend had been instructed, on day 1 mind you, to start having the crew turn them in as per company policy. He didn't think this was a big deal at all. After all, everyone knew what the rules really were, right? So he rolled out the request from the safety and maintenance departments just as it had been relayed to him at the regular startup meeting, only to find, to the crew, it was a big deal. It was rather quickly pointed out that he'd always turned in his equipment reports at the same time, both together, and why was he changing the rules or the process now? He had just learned lesson number 1. Many times things are all in the wording, how it's being presented. Being a supervisor or a member of management makes you no better or really above anyone else. It does and will, in many instances, give us more information, though. A heads up, or maybe I'm trying to say the reasons for decisions or those policies now may be shared with us in much greater detail. And then it's our responsibility to communicate it forward to our reports. There's that communication word. I know I bring it up every time I'm talking about advancement or our roles as supervisors and leads, but I have to state again that our ability to effectively communicate and communicate honestly and fairly will determine our success and how quickly we see that advancement and those opportunities. You know, he still laughs to this day about that meeting and how he wishes he had explained how, with the department growing, that they needed to share the rules and processes with the new boots. They'd all been used to relying on each other and knew they could trust each other with the equipment. But now maintenance had to learn to rely on the new team members, so let's all tighten up and help out our new operators. I think things would have gone much better in the long run if he had kind of taken that approach. As I mentioned earlier, it was great seeing a lot of my old coworkers in the industry this week, and I was really excited to see and meet so many new and young up-and-comings in our fields. I know I learned a lot and took away enough to keep me busy for months educating myself with the new products and companies entering the industry. A couple of things I know we'll be seeing and hearing more about is all the new technologies that are being introduced. I sat in on a panel discussion with representatives from Forklift Simulator and the Raymond Corporation. The session was on virtual reality training. They spoke about some great software for training a forklift driver and how realistic it was for the student. They also hit on the positions of driving and order selecting. If you've ever done anything with VR, I'm sure you're thinking of the possibilities. Another session focused on how to put together a rodeo, and he covered a lot of the do's and don'ts. I really liked this presenter. I've put on several events myself and had the honor of attending and judging many more. Rodeos are a lot of work, and they can kind of lean a little heavily on our expenses, but what a great thing to do for our employees. And really, those costs can be controlled to a point. I've been to really great rodeos that were put on for just a couple of $100. It's all about the employees, and I've always felt it's important to recognize their efforts and the jobs. I think rodeos are great. I believe one of the most thought-provoking sessions that I sat in on was with Uber Freight. I believe as a shipper or broker, especially the mom and pop shop or small trucking organization, this is a concept to watch. It appears to really be picking up speed. I'll be watching it grow and be keeping up with the business model here. I'll try and learn a bit more about it. Maybe we can do an episode on transportation in the near future. I'm pretty excited about all the possibilities it's going to offer. Like I said, we introduced the Distribution Training Center there this week. I'm really excited about it, and man, I've got a lot of follow-up to do with a lot of new friends and people in the business wanting to know more about it. I'm really enjoying helping the students get started and get that foot in the door in a great new industry, and the efficiencies being seen so far are honestly outstanding. We'll be hosting a grand opening for all the distribution centers local to Dallas this month. I can't wait to introduce it here. I'm going to make sure and corner Joe, and we'll put together a show in the warehouse over there on the floor. Well, I got sidetracked again, but back to being a new soup and having the opportunity to attend a convention or a conference. Take advantage of every new learning experience, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, new is a bit stressful, but everyone goes through it. Latch on to someone, a mentor that you respect, and learn everything from their experiences. And remember, a good communicator is really a great listener too. Just about every industry I can think of has conventions throughout the year, and if you're working for a larger corporation, I bet they have several conferences too. Think of them as just stepping stones to our goals. Being that employee we're always talking about here at WAOC is going to get you that invite. Take all the wisdom shared with you at those events and impress your executive team with your enthusiasm and knowledge that you're bringing back. Well, let's see, about 7 weeks ago, we were speaking about our 2018 goals. We kind of reviewed where we were and talked about our next pay increase or promotion. We felt like 15 weeks was plenty of time to achieve or prepare for our next steps. Let's see, what do we have left now? 8 weeks. 8 weeks until the new year. How's everyone doing on those goals? If we're focused and acting on our plans, I bet those 2018 goals are within our grasp, just an arm's reach away. How's that planning coming on our 2019 goals? I'm sure we'll be talking about those in the coming weeks too. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and I'd like to thank you for checking in again. Keep sending your questions and thoughts to host@warehouseandoperationsasacareer.com, and I'll keep finding those with answers for us. If you haven't subscribed to us on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or your favorite podcatcher, please do so. It's absolutely free, and you'll never miss an episode that way. And of course, remember, we can be found on both Facebook and Twitter. You can find us using that little @sign, WHSEANDOPS. Until next week, let's all communicate a safety topic to a new boot on the floor.